Hey everyone, welcome to Data Umbrella's webinar. I'm going to do a brief introduction and then we'll open up the talk to Estela. And if you have any questions, ask them in the chat and we'll answer them at the end of this session. This is being recorded. A little bit about Data Umbrella. We are a community for underrepresented persons in data science. We organize events for the community and we are a nonprofit organization. This is our team that makes it happen behind the scenes. We have a code of conduct, and we thank you for helping to make this a welcoming, friendly community for all that people want to keep returning to. There are various ways to support Data Umbrella. The first and foremost is to follow our code of conduct. The second is share Data Umbrella events with anyone in your community. We really appreciate it in getting the word out. And we also have a number of projects that you can contribute to, which are open source. One of them is video timestamps. So we put timestamps on all of our videos to make them easier for users to find them. And that's pretty easy to do in terms of Git isn't required. We have a new website, which we are moving from Google Sites over to a Jekyll Markdown website. And so I've been working on that with Sangam, who is one of the Data Umbrella organizers. And it's actually been a fun and good learning experience. And we have a PyMC Sprint website. I'm going to share a little bit more about that in a moment. We also have our blog, and we have an events board, which is all on it's all on our GitHub repo, and it's all open source. Other ways that you can support Data Umbrella is by donating to our nonprofit. We are an open collective as Data Umbrella. And if you work for a company that uses Benevity, we are on Benevity, which means that whatever you donate through your company is company matched, and Data Umbrella will get that company match as well. This is just a sampling of some of our videos on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel to find more resources. One of the playlists we have, which is quite popular, is career advice. And other playlists are data visualization, open source, and contributing to various scientific Python libraries such as Pandas, NumPy, and scikit-learn, and PyMC. We have a monthly newsletter that's on dataumbrella.substack.com. We aim for the first of the month. We promise not to send any other emails, and we try for once a month. Sometimes the newsletters come out every other month. Our website has resources, so if you want to learn more about open source, accessibility, and responsibility, we recommend you check that out. We are on all social media platforms as Data Umbrella. The two most popular ones are Twitter and LinkedIn, where we're most active. For upcoming events, Meetup is the place to find out. For videos, they're all on YouTube. And for news and announcements and updates, our blog and newsletter are the place to go to. We use Big Marker platform for this webinar, and live captioning is available. So if you go to the very top of the window, there are two letters, CC for closed captioning. You can enable live transcript of this webinar. We have a feedback form as well. I'll share a link to it in the chat, but also you can find it in the handout section. So if you have any feedback for Data Umbrella in terms of the specific event, if you encounter any technical issues, if you have suggestions for future event topics, or any other feedback, feel free to share that with us. We have a few upcoming events. We have on March 21st, which is 2 weeks from today, we have ML Ops from Concept to Product. On March 30th, we have a Latin America Sprint, which will be online, and that's for contributing to open source. And in April, we have data-driven mathematical optimization in PyOmo, which was actually a suggested topic by one of our community members. So thank you for that. And to find out about our upcoming events, the Meetup is the place to go. A little bit more information about the open source sprint. As I mentioned, it's online. This one is focused on Latin America. doesn't mean it's exclusive to Latin America. So if you're anywhere in the world, you can join. It is from 15 to 1800 UTC, which is 10 a.m. New York time. It's online for 3 hours, and we have a lot more information on our Sprint website for that. Today's talk is, what is a sales engineer? Our speaker is Estela Baca. Estela is a Splunk sales engineer based out of Nevada. She has a BA in computer science with a minor in business administration. Estela's latest educational accomplishments include becoming Splunk certified at different levels. She found her passion in technology as it is ever changing. She is passionate about giving back to the community by supporting DEI initiatives as co-lead of Splunk ERG Somos, participating in mentorship programs, and actively volunteering to assist in university recruiting events. Estela is currently an active member of the Women Tech Makers Ambassador and Google Developers Group. During her free time, she loves spending time with her family, reading, and free writing. Her favorite phrase is "action conquers fear." I love that. And oh, the GitHub will have to update. That's fine. And with that, I'm going to hand over the microphone and the screen share over to Estela. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat and we'll answer them at the end of the session.
Thank you, Reshma. I really appreciate you inviting me today. Welcome, everyone. I am very excited to virtually see you. As Reshma stated, today I'm going to talk to you about what is a sales engineer. Prior to me coming into this field, I really had no idea what it was. But before I get started, I just want to do a few housekeeping items. Can everyone see my screen? And if you can just go ahead, Reshma, and just tell me, yes, we can see it, then I can go ahead and move along.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay. So now I can move along. I feel better. In today's agenda, we are going to go ahead and cover exactly what is a sales engineer, who is this individual, the type of industries that a sales engineer can work in, the type of work they do, the kind of skills that take to become a sales engineer, how to stand out, a day in the sales engineer life, what are some of the benefits of becoming a sales engineer, how to become one, if you're in college, if you're already in a company that is in tech, or if I'm also going to talk to you about my journey on becoming a sales engineer, and other things to consider before you go down the path of becoming a sales engineer. I know Reshma gave you a little bit of background about me, but I still would like to share with you my data points, as we call it in Splunk. So here are some fun facts. Yes, my favorite phrase is action conquers fear. During my free time, I totally love spending time with my family, my husband, my son, and my daughter. I'm a family person. My life passions do include volunteering, DEI, and I am currently part of the DEI, the Somos. I am their co-lead. Here's some of my educational background. I did get my degree in the University of, I got part of my degree in the University of Laverne. I spent a semester abroad in the University of Barcelona, and I completed my computer science degree with a minor in business administration in Western New Mexico University. I do currently hold several Splunk certifications. The one that I'm the most proud of is the Splunk Enterprise Architect Cert. It did take me a while, but it was a great stepping stone for me. And here are some of my memberships. As Reshma stated before, I am part of the Women Tech Makers Ambassador Group, the Google Developers Group, as well as Latinas in Tech. Now we can get to the fun part. Have you ever heard the word sales engineer and wonder, what and who is this person? Have you ever wondered if you have met one, if you need one, where can you find one, can you become one? Now, if you said yes to any of these questions today, I hope that the talk can help you understand a little bit more about who this person is and what do they do. Now, according to the Cambridge Dictionary and the information published in the Pre-Sales Collective site, these are some of the information that describe a sales engineer. They are someone in sales that sells products and services for scientific and technical companies and have both sales skills and technical skills. They work along the sides with sales representatives and are responsible for facilitating technical aspects of the pre-sales process. Here's something important to think about sales engineers. Sales engineers also develop relationships not only internally, but also externally with the customers, with the main purpose of identifying their needs, find and design solutions that will ultimately meet those needs. Now, when we hear the word sales engineer, we are not limited to only one kind of person. If you ever heard the term or the word technical sales engineer, solutions architect, sales consultant, value engineer, solution designer, solution consultant, sales evangelist, and maybe sometimes application engineer, these individuals do play the same roles as sales engineers. Regardless of the title, according to some research I've been doing, Coursera.com does state that sales engineers position is in a rapid growth, so the industry has great potential for this type of individuals. The Bureau of Labor stats projects that employment in sales engineer will grow up to 6% faster as the average roles and occupations between the years of 2021 and 2031. I kind of wonder why was this happening, and it turns out that this is happening because of the increased demand for new and innovative products and services. We want everything fast, and we want it now, and we want it to be better than it was yesterday. So yes, definitely we are going to need a lot more sales engineers. Now, what kind of industries do sales engineers work on? Well, we're going to go ahead and explore some of the industries that SEs can work in, but let's just go ahead and keep in mind that the examples I'm going to be giving right here are not limited to just these industries. There could be more industries, but these are just some examples. Now, sales engineers can work in the energy industry. And for this part of the industry, these companies are who produce and sell products and services related to energy, generation, distribution, and conservation of energy. They can also work in the environmental industry. In here, sales engineers create and sell products and services that help reduce the impact of human activities on the environment. Sales engineers in the healthcare industry can work for companies that manufacture and sell healthcare products, diagnostic equipment, and medical devices. In the manufacturing industry, sales engineers may work for companies that produce a wide range of products, for example, consumer goods, chemical manufacturing, electronics, and industrial machines. Now, last but not least, in the technology industry, which is in the industry that I'm currently working on, sales engineers can work for companies that manufacture and sell computer hardware, software, cloud infrastructure, cloud services, telecommunication equipment, and other technology products. Now let's take a minute here and talk about what is the work on at SE. Who do they work with? Well, since there are different industries where SEs can work, today's talk, we're gonna really focus on sales engineers in the technology field with a concentration of SaaS or software as a service. Because sales engineers are trusted advisors and they possess technical skills as well as good communication skills, they will work with different internal teams, such as, give me 1 minute, we're gonna have the sales representative, which is right here on the top. And the sales representative is actually also known as an account executive and regional sales manager. The sales representative and the sales engineers are both part of the sales team. Sales engineers are also gonna be able to work with customer success managers, known as CSMs, technical account managers, aka TAMs, and they also work with technical support engineers, known as TSCs. And in some occasions, they also work alongside with professional services, depending on the customer's needs. Now, everybody included in this specific ecosystem works together with the customer at the center of the operation, because the main purpose and mission of all these individuals are to make sure to find the right solution for the customer to help them succeed with their products. Now, SEs can be engaged during different stages of the cycle. The first cycle that I have included in here is called the discovery cycle, or the initial phase. Sales engineers will work with the sales representatives on the account team to develop relationships with the customers, to identify their needs, and find or design solutions to meet those needs. That happens in this phase. Now, during the deployment phase, sales engineers will assist the customer, providing technical advice, researching information to answer technical questions, and by finding resources to assist them with their deployment project. Now we're going to move to the adoption phase of it. And during the adoption phase of a product, SEs normally work with customers that need assistance with the product, that need assistance understanding how it works, and also when the product doesn't seem to solve the problem of the customer, the sales engineer will come in and try to assist to fill in those gaps. For existing customers, sales engineers are engaged during the product renewal and expansion phase, meaning every year, especially now in SaaS, people have to go through the renewal process. They want to evaluate if the product is exactly doing what they want to. And if they don't, they want to know, do I want to stay with you or do I want to go? So sales engineers are going to come in and their advice is going to be very important to assist the account team to determine the renewal process and the expansion path that the customer should follow to continue being successful with the product. Now, when it comes to the phases, it doesn't necessarily have to be linear. Sometimes sales engineers can be engaged in different phases depending on the type of engagement that the customer needs with the sales engineer. Now, let's think about what kind of activities do sales engineers do. There's two types of activities that are always present in the life of a sales engineer. We have our internal activities and our customer-facing activities. Let's talk about first about the internal activities, okay? Internal activities will include account planning. That is a very big part of sales engineering life. During the account planning process, sales engineers are going to do tons of research and activities with the sales representatives to try to understand the customer territory, business needs, and industry. Some of the account planning activities can also include health checks to review the customer's current status by adoption or usage and to identify possible gaps. They will also create product value plan reviews to provide prescriptive advice to ensure to improve the customer's product usage and adoption, especially for expansions and renewals. Sales engineers also spend a lot of time architecting, thinking outside the box, ways to use the product in many different ways to be able to satisfy customer needs from different types of customers. Now, sales engineers are always training. We always have to make sure that we are up to date with the latest information, not only about our products, but also the latest technology trends. And again, we're talking about sales engineers that are in technology and SaaS. Now, SEs also provide some feedback and work together with project management team. And the reason why that is because we provide information about how the customer is currently using the product, what are the things that are not working, and how we can make it better. So that way we continue providing that added value to our customers. Now, here's some example of some of the customer-facing activities. It's a whole list, but let's start with the top one. So in the discovery session part, these specific facing activities are a conversation with the customer. They're dedicated to do technical scoping, and it's during these sessions that sales engineers are gonna try to understand the customer needs and problems and try to figure it out what is the best product that we can offer to solve them. And the second part, which is the presentation and the demonstration portion of it, sales engineers are going to do product feature presentation, training sessions, workshops with the customer, all with the aim to assist the customer to be successful with the product. Nowadays, it's not just important to sell a product, but you want to make sure that your customer is able to use it and get the best out of it. And what best way to do it than to give a good presentation, a good demonstration, a good walkthrough, and make the customer feel like they're at home. Now, for customers that are for sales engineers that are in SaaS, manufacturing, and health fields, trade show support is also part of the customer-facing activities. Now, for the post-sale support, it's also another activity that sales engineers have to do, especially after purchasing a product, like I was stating before. You don't want to just sell a product and say, okay, here's your product, figure it out. No, sales engineers come in and guide the customer through the adoption process, answering those questions that could be a little too technical for the customer to understand, or that need the sales engineers to go and consult internally to be able to provide that information to the customer. Last but not least, we do POCs, or proof of concepts. These specific proofs of concepts are a way for the customer to test drive the product, but they're going to go ahead and use their own data to see exactly how our product can solve their issues. So it's just not just about hypothetically saying our product can do it, but the proof of concept is going to prove, yes, our product 100% can do it. Now, here are some of the skills that sales engineers have to possess in order to be successful. Number one is your technical skills. Sales engineers must definitely be able to employ creative ways to architect solutions that solve customer problems while still taking into consideration business impact and business needs. Sales engineers must also have good understanding on how a product works, key features, integration alternatives, and have the ability to find and provide technical documentation as needed. As a sales engineer, one has to be willing to learn skills all the time, not only depending on the company's needs, but also on the customer's needs. Sales engineers must be analytical. Sales engineers must be able to think like a scientist all the time. They must be able to perform research, maintaining an open mind while finding a new way to solve the same problems with different strategies. Not the same solution is gonna work for every single customer. The product will be the same, but the customer might be wanting to use the product in a different way. As a sales engineer, it's our job to find out how to make that happen. Sales engineers also have to take in considerations the mistakes from the past, use those mistakes and create a better solution to make sure that those mistakes are not just mistakes falling back, but moving forward. And just like a scientist, a sales engineer must be willing to ask and try to answer the critical question, why? After all, we do everything for a why reason. Why is it needed? Why is it important? Why do you want to use our product? Why is our product the best fit? And last but not least, sales engineers need to have soft skills. So they must be able to enjoy interaction with people because it's our responsibility to grow strong relationships. Sales engineers must have the ability to diffuse conflict as needed and to continue focusing and finding the right solutions. Sales engineers usually need to find creative solutions on the spot. Therefore, it is very important that they're able to have control over their own emotions and that are able to perform under pressure. Sales engineers must also be able to be team players, be very resilient, good with their time management, self-confident, and hold themselves accountable at all times. Another important soft skill for sales engineers is having good communication skills, written and verbal. Why? Because sales engineers sometimes have to explain with clarity complex topics to technical people and non-technical people. Non-technical audience sometimes include people that are the decision-making buyers. Example, people that hold the budget to be able to make a purchase. So a sales engineer needs to be able to explain to those individuals that are not necessarily technical exactly how a technical product will solve their problems. SEs also must be able to exercise active listening and pay full attention while engaging with possible prospects. There are also some the sales engineer is also responsible for providing technical feedback to the customers, but also to their colleagues to ensure that projects that are architected are being architected with the correct specs and with the right timelines. Now, here are some useful certifications for sales engineers in SaaS and maybe in cybersecurity. The Google Cloud certificate is a good certification to obtain because it's gonna increase the SE skills on Google Cloud products and solutions. The AWS Cloud Practitioner certificate. It's a good cert to have to obtain some good information and knowledge about AWS Cloud Computer. And we have Microsoft Azure cloud certifications, which can help an SE obtain basic knowledge about cloud services and how those services are provided with Azure. When it comes to the certification paths, also those are going to vary and depend on not only the industry, but the dedicated field that every single one of a sales engineer can choose to take. Here are some other skills that can help a sales engineer stand out. You can actually have programming or scripting language background in Python, Java, JavaScript, C, C++, Go, Kotlin, Swift, C#, or PHP. And it can also be useful to boost up and stand out as a sales engineer to have a project management certification like PMP. Now, what does a day in the life of a sales engineer looks like? So for this specific example, I took what my day normally looks like. And I'm going to tell you this, my days are never the same. The only thing that stays the same are probably the very first hour of my day, which is when I do my sales administrator tasks. What does that mean? Going over my emails, doing follow-up emails, checking my internal Slacks, and making sure that every single one of the conversations that I'm involved in are up to date and have been responded. And I also ensure that all my customer tasks are up to date. Now, here's where it becomes really interesting. Some days I might be doing a customer workshop. What does that mean? I can spend anywhere between 1 hour to 4 hours facilitating customer workshop trainings, of course, depending on the customer needs. And then right after that, I can go into an internal meeting, especially because my job is 100% teamwork intensive. Internal meetings are required for pre-customer calls, post-customer calls, as well as internal planning meetings. These meetings sometimes vary in time, but they can really stagger up if you have a lot of projects that you need to do during the week. So most of my agenda is planned around my customer plans and my internal meetings. I also do internal training. Again, since my job as a sales engineer is to stay up to date to the latest and greatest, I am required to be knowledgeable on the product. Therefore, I do have to take a specific amount of hours in training just to make sure that I'm able to understand and be able to explain to our customers how our products work. I also do customer discovery calls. And as I explained before, these calls are just literally between 20 to 30 minutes, introductory calls with our new customers or existing customers. And we talk about exactly what is it that they need? What are they looking for? Why are they interested in a new piece of our product? Or why are they even interested in our product? Overall, anything that has to do with discovery, think about it as the very first time you meet someone and you realize, why do I want to have a relationship with this person moving forward? That's what a customer discovery call is about. I do a lot of account planning. I spend a significant amount of time researching and planning account projects, as well as architecting solutions and demonstrations for new and current customers. And last but not least, I can do customer products demos. This is the fun and exciting part. This is where I actually get to get all that information that I gather from our discovery session, where the customer tells me, I'm going to need to monitor this many pieces of my infrastructure. And I also want to be able to have insights into my security, but I want to have some alerts that tell me maybe when I'm having a brute force attack, or maybe when the CPU of my very, very critical servers is going up and I need to troubleshoot. I get to get all that information, put it all together, get it into our product, and create a demonstration of how that will look like with our product, so that they can see that our product can actually solve those problems for them. I think this is one of my fun activities, the customer product presentation and demonstration, that just gets me excited. And I go in there and say, yes, this is how we do it. So after we went to what the day looks like, now let's talk about what are some of the benefits. Because if I already told you what a sales engineer does and you kind of like what you're hearing, are there any benefits or perks to being a sales engineer? Absolutely. Compensation. So depending on the field that you're on, great compensation can be part of it. Do your research. Some companies pay a little more than others, but again, it all depends on where you are in your life journey or where you want to go, you know. So do your research, but there's great conversation. Another perk, we are always learning. There is no things as repetitive work. If anyone in the audience right now is an individual like me that gets bored very quickly doing the same thing over and over again, and you need to constantly be learning, constantly having to teach someone because you just enjoy doing that, then maybe a career in sales engineer might be for you. Flexible hours. So there is flexible hours. And again, let's keep in mind, it could depend on the type of industry that you join. But in the industry that I'm on right now, I do have some great flexibility with hours. And I do work remote 100%. So that helps too. So do your research. Hopefully you do find a sales engineering position where flexible hours is part of your perks. And family and work-life balance. That is very important, especially for individuals like me that have family at home. You know, I have 2 kiddos and my husband, and I still want to have my career. So it's one of those, I want my cake, have it and eat it. So being a sales engineer allows me to do that, allows me to have a career, allows me to continue growing, but allows me also to have my weekends off with my husband and my children, to be able to go to those specific events in schools and still be able to help my children with their homework. So yes, family and work balance is definitely a perk. And the people. I mean, if you are one of those people that loves people, that enjoys teaching them, that just loves human interaction, definitely a sales engineering career might be a good fit for you. Now, if I already got you thinking, well, I already know what a sales engineer is. What do they do? Where do they work? Now, you're wondering, how do you become one? It will depend. If you're still in college, one of the things that I will advise you is to get an internship. Internships are especially good around the time of the summertime, and they are a great way to get job experience, which is a great way to fill in those knowledge gaps that you might still have. People also gain great value exposure to the sales engineering daily activities by getting an internship. Individuals learn a lot about how they perform their daily tasks. And with an internship, you are going to have the ability to amplify your network. That is actually very important, especially coming out of college. You need a network that you can lean on, that you can talk to, and that can help you grow. So internships are a must. The internship is actually going to give you access to different departments in a specific company. You're going to be able to find mentorship opportunities and also the opportunity to start growing and expanding your resume. Now, while you're still in college, you definitely want to start working on strengthening those non-technical skills. What does that mean? As a sales engineer, not everything is technical. As I was telling you before, there are some soft skills that go in there. So if you're still in college, look for opportunities to start knowing how to do better presentations. Take on a project that requires problem-solving skills, team building activities, and anything that is going to help you become better with relationship building. Do your research. Research is very important. Research the companies that you may want to work for. Research what they stand for. Sometimes you're going to be surprised that some of these companies actually do some software in software free offers, or that they even have introductory courses that are for free. Take them. It's a great opportunity for you to get your feet wet and understand if you like the company, if you like the products, and if you could actually see yourself being part of the company as a sales engineer. And last but not least, you can also join sales engineers organizations to have a community to lean on and learn from. I'm going to put 2 examples in here of some of the technical sales engineer organizations that you can join today. We have the Sales Engineers and the Pre-Sales Collective. Now, what happens if you do want to become a sales engineer and you already work in tech? How do you make that leap, right? Which is exactly what happened to me. I was working already in tech, but I wasn't always a sales engineer. So how did I go from where I was to where I am today? Well, networking. Networking is one of the best things that you can do in your company. Get to know, I mean, if you are in tech, chances are that you do have a team of sales engineers that are out there supporting your sales team to sell your product and helping the customers become successful with it. So get to know these people, ask them a lot of questions about what they do, their journey, ask if it will be possible to shadow their day, of course, as long as your company policy allows you to. You can also try to meet the sales engineer's manager. And that's exactly what I did. I actually got introduced to my manager, Dante Bacas, out there. And I talked to him about my interest to become a sales engineer. And he kind of listened to my career trajectory and gave me some feedback about the type of individuals that he was looking for to hire, what the hiring process could probably look like, and where I may have some skill gaps so that I can go back and start working on those. So please leverage your sales engineer managers. They are always happy to review your resume and kind of provide you feedback and say, are you ready for it? Or you know what, you need to go back and work on it a little bit more. I know I use this word a lot, but marry to it. Research. You got to do research about how to improve those skills that might still be lacking. It is never too late to add new tricks to your bag. So do research about which ones of your current skills can be transferable skills to become a sales engineer. Example, if you are a developer and you know C# or any kind of programming language, and you have experience with scripting, these skills are 100% transferable to be a sales engineer. Sales engineers with that kind of background have great technical knowledge. So yes, 100%, those are transferable. Now, once you have identified where you may have some skill gaps, start working on them. Strengthen your skills. You can learn a lot more about the company's core product if you don't have a lot of knowledge on that, because sometimes we start working and we just forget that there's a lot more to our company than what we're doing, right? So start kind of poking and peeking and try to understand exactly what everybody else is doing around you. And you'll be really surprised that sometimes we work with people very closely and we don't know what they're doing. So if you know what they're doing and you know how your job is important to them, then you're really having a better understanding of how the company ecosystem works. And that's a great skill to have. Volunteer. Take an opportunity to volunteer with a project that will require problem solving. Do more presentations. I have met some individuals that are introverts and they have a little bit of a hard time with presentations, but are great with communication and they are great with technology skills, but the presentation is a little rocky. They start working on it. It's a muscle memory. That's all there is to it. So do more presentations so that you can get there. Relationship building skills. Continue doing that. If you feel like you're a little bit of an introvert again, then start going to some networking activities. Make it a point to maybe talk to one new person a day. It could be just a quick introductory of, hello, how are you? I work in this area. What do you do in your area? And take 15 minutes to get to know that person. That is a relationship building exercise that as a sales engineer is going to take you very far. And then last but not least, apply for it. Sometimes just in the application process, you're going to get to learn a lot about what the position is about, what the hiring process is about, what they're really looking for. And let's pretend that you apply and you didn't get the position. Ask for feedback. That is very important. Your feedback after your application is going to be that one part that is going to make you resilient to say, yes, I want it and this is what I'm missing and I'm going to work on it and I'm going to apply again. So if you really want to be part of a sales engineering, don't get discouraged if you do not get it the first time. Apply for it, get your feedback, make the adjustments that you need to make, and apply again. Now, how did I become a sales engineer? There are some individuals that have a journey that looks like this right here. What people look like is straight path to sales engineer. That was definitely not my case. My case was a lot more like this one on the right-hand side. It was all over the place, okay? So I started, my experience goes way back 13 years ago or something. After I got out of college, I didn't go into the workforce right away. I got married, started a family, stayed at home for a while, and then I went back into the workforce. And even though I had a computer science degree with a minor in business administration, I had to start from the bottom up. Why? Because I had to relearn a lot of the skills that I didn't learn within that 3-4 period gap that I was a stay-home mom. So I started as an e-commerce manager, managing a bridal website. Then after that, I had to move to another state. So I went as a bank teller. And it sounds a little bit out of the element, but as a bank teller, one of the things that I learned was how to treat a person face to face. We as tellers sometimes had to deal with very angry individuals. And our job was mainly to diffuse that conversation, to make sure the customers stay calm, to make sure that everything that happened in that moment was not personal. It was about something that went wrong for the customer. And my job was there not to take it personal, but to be able to assist the customer. So I think that bank teller position helped me with that portion. Learning how to take nothing personal is all about the work. Then I moved as a digital campaign data analyst. When I moved here to Vegas, I started working for a company that had a small contract with Google. And we were doing digital campaigns. This is around the time that HTML and HTML5 were in the transition, right? And so I got to learn a lot about the technical portions of digital campaigns, inspecting JavaScript tags, inspecting HTML tags, making sure that campaigns out there were being pushed on time, talking to, again, angry customers that felt like your product was not working. And sometimes it's not even the product. Sometimes it could be different things. So that's where active listening came a lot in handy, making sure that I was listening to the problem rather than the human frustration that was coming through. It was never about that. It was always about the product is not working. This is where it's breaking. This is how we're going to fix it, right? So that was a great opportunity there. Now I moved to digital media manager and I became the digital media marketing for an airline. I did airline marketing for about 2-3 years. And the fun times came around during Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's when we used to push out our big sales for the airline. And one thing I learned in there is I learned a lot about technical background. I was the only person in the agency that had a background with coding and C# and understanding what HTML and HTML5 was and inspecting JavaScript tags versus non-secure and secure tags. And so all that knowledge that I had gathered in previous years is what really helped me become a successful digital media manager while I was in that specific agency. After that, I moved to a company that did software image management for credit unions, and I became a TAM, a technical support account manager. In this specific role, I think what I learned the most was exactly what the difference was between on-premise deployments and cloud deployment licensing. This is when the cloud was barely coming out, right? It was really good to start seeing exactly how customer manage their own on-premise licenses and how the process of troubleshooting is a little bit different when you sell software to someone that is hosting it in the cloud with a company. Totally different two worlds and totally different terminologies that customers use. So it was a really good opportunity to learn that specific moving part. Then I became a data center application engineer, which is where I actually really came full force and understand about application implementation. And I kind of got a better understanding of what infrastructure monitoring was and application deployment and cloud migrations. It was great. And then I went back to being a technical support account manager. And for some individuals, that may be a step back. I saw it as a step to the side. Why? Because I actually became a technical account manager for a cybersecurity company. As we know, cybersecurity is very important nowadays. So I figure, what a better way for me to learn what cybersecurity can do for humanity than to be part of that world. So I went in there, I did it for a minute, and then along came Splunk. And I stayed as a technical support account manager, and that's where I met a few sales engineers in Splunk. And they told me, you have a lot of the traits and skills that a sales engineer has. Have you ever considered being a sales engineer? I personally didn't even know what a sales engineer was. I didn't even know that some of the activities that I was doing with other companies were considered part of a sales engineer job. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to try it. And I started that whole journey of talking to the sales engineer manager. I got me a sales engineer mentor. I started doing shadowing. And then I eventually became a sales engineer. Now, here are some of the skills that actually helped me become a sales engineer. Resilience. That's a number one thing. As a sales engineer, aside from all the technical things that you need to know, and aside of all the soft skills, you need to be a resilient person. You need to be able to have a bad day, bounce back, and be ready for the next one. You need to be able to fail as many times as needed and come back and say, there's the answer. So resilience, I know some people may not consider a skill. Trust me, it's a muscle memory. So consider a skill when you're able to do it over and over again and continue moving forward. I always have my LEN attitude as part of my skill. What does LEN stand for? It stands for listening, expressing, negotiating, and do. This specific acronym has stuck with me forever, and I bring it as part of my skill set because, yes, listening sometimes is a very big part of what us humans forget to do sometimes. And expressing properly can also be difficult, especially when you're having a customer or somebody in your team that is having a hard time understanding something or that is a little frustrating. Expressing the right ideas in the right moment is very important. Negotiation. You want to know how to negotiate things, whether it's your rate, whether it's the way that you're going to present something to a customer. You want to negotiate how long a project is going to take. You need to know how to do that. And doing. Sometimes us as humans get stuck in the fear factor. If something is unknown and difficult, we get stuck and we don't know where to go and we kind of freeze a little. Jump in there and do it. What's the worst thing that is going to happen? That it could be wrong and you can redo it again. Just do it until you know that you got the results that you wanted. Now, going to other skills that really helped me as a sales engineer is some programming experience. I do have experience programming in C, C++, C#, and Java. I'm not doing it now, but if you put something in front of me that has these specific programming languages, I can guarantee you I'm going to understand exactly where things could be breaking. That sometimes could be very beneficial, especially when you're working with a customer that needs a little bit of a second pair of eyes. I do have experience with application troubleshooting and configuration, data center and cloud hosting, Splunk certifications. I did get my certification as a CrowdStrike certified Falcon administrator. That is for cybersecurity. Do have plenty and extensive experience doing Windows, Mac OS, and Linux OS management, data analytics, and I am currently working on becoming AWS certified as well as learning Python because Python is actually very cool, especially when you're doing automation. Now we are almost getting close to the end of our talk, and I hope I didn't put you to sleep, but if I did, just let's quick reminders. If you are kind of considering becoming a sales engineer, here are some things to keep in mind. Travel. You may have to travel. So when you're looking for a sales engineer position, ask how often do you need to travel. It will depend on your region. It will depend on if you're going to be a face-to-face 100% customer sales engineer, or if you're going to be a hybrid, remote and facing. So travel, definitely ask, how often do I have to travel? If you are an individual that traveling is not a bad thing to do, go ahead and possibly it's a good thing. But if you're a person that doesn't want to travel as much, kind of look at your options and see if you want to maybe do a hybrid sales engineer. Pay structure. Do some research about pay structure because pay structures for sales engineers are a little bit different from a regular position. If anybody has questions about the pay structure, feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn. I am more than happy to take 15 minutes and kind of explain to you how some of those structures might look like. Company size. You definitely want to consider the company size when you are becoming a sales engineer. Sometimes we may think that smaller companies might be better because you're barely starting and you want to get familiar. No, not necessarily. When you think about a smaller company, we're talking about startups. They need people that know how to do things and can hit the ground running, right? So if you are brand new to sales engineering, my advice is to go to a large company. Why? Because they have more resources. They have individuals that have been in the company for years that you can leverage their skill set from. And you're probably not going to be asked to start doing tasks that are not specifically tailored for you, since you don't have some of the skills that other sales engineers may have. So company size is important. Now, last but not least, you definitely want to consider the sales representative ratio to sales engineers. In large companies, sometimes the ratio could be a little easier to manage than in a smaller company. In my opinion, again, it could differ from people out there, but in my opinion, if you're new to a sales engineering, sometimes having 2 sales representatives to 3 sales representatives is more than enough. What does that mean? Some of these representatives may have 3 or 4 different customers that you're going to have to interact with. So if you have, let's say, for example, 2 customers for each one of those sales representatives, you do the math, you definitely have more than enough people to interact with and work with. So yes, consider the workload that this ratio is going to give you before you say yes to a position. We are at the end of our journey, and I just want to leave you with this thought. If you are a curious individual, someone who really loves learning new skills and teaching them to new people, if you are comfortable being uncomfortable, do you like thinking outside the box all the time and creating new paths for things in more efficient ways? And if you answer to yes to any of these questions, I can guarantee you that maybe a sales engineer position might be right for you. The deck is going to be shared with you guys after today's talk, but I included some links in here that are great to help you. They're great resources. I put the link for the pre-sales collective group, how to become a sales engineer. My apologies, let me go back one. Course data sales engineer. And there's this book that I definitely recommend. I read this book during a journey that I did in my company with my mentor, Rosie Sennett, out there. My manager, Dante Baca, has recommended me to take a course with Rosie Sennett. And Rosie Sennett said, you know what, go ahead and read this book, The Qualified Sales Leader by John McCann, so that you can actually understand exactly what the sales cycle looks like. This is a useful book, especially for those individuals that are technical savvy, but don't have a lot of information about what a sales cycle is, who is part of that, how do we sales engineers come in part of it. And so it's a great book to have as a reference so that you understand exactly where you're stepping as you're moving along in the journey with your sales representatives and the rest of your team members that are working in the ecosystem towards making your customers happy. Okay, and that concludes our talk today. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I truly appreciate it. If any of you guys have any questions, if you guys want to chat or talk about becoming a sales engineer, again, my information is going to be in the presentation. I'm more than happy to chat. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and look at the chat and see if we have any questions.
Hey, Estela, thank you so much for the presentation. We do have some questions in the Q&A, and I will read them and you can answer them. The first one is from Sangam. How is sales engineering different compared to customer success engineer and developer relations engineer?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So there is a difference. Customer success managers actually deal with customers day to day, and think about customer success manager as your project management, your PMP. Your customer success manager is going to go in there and identify the skills that a customer might be lacking and go back to the drawing board and say, you know what, they don't know how to do A, B, and C. And we have all these courses that they can take. We're going to recommend that. Oh, and by the way, there's going to be a new release. We got to go back to the customer and tell them that this release might be able to improve specific aspects, but it might also break some parts, right? So the customer success manager stays on top of that for the customer. The sales engineer, on the other hand, doesn't have that much of a personal relationship with the customer. The sales engineer has a personal relationship with the customer as far as technical questions. How do I do this integration? What documentation can I use for it? Can you recommend me what partner can I use to be able to purchase my products? You see, so one of them is a little more in-depth. Think about an onion. The sales engineer is the part of the onion that will, I know, I always relate everything to food, but think of your sales engineer as the part outside, as your protective shell. It's going to give you all the technological information you need to be able to start integrating. The customer success manager is a lot more in-depth, is personal, knows everything about the environment of the customer, how often they do upgrades, if they have maybe some turn down in the customer side and there's new people that are coming into the team, customer success manager normally does that, knows who owns the projects on the customer side as well as in the company side. Sales engineer, on the other hand, we come in more in the sales side where we know exactly, hey, it's going to be renewal time. So we know that we have to do a health check. We're missing. Now, if the sales engineer does a health check and there's some parts that need to be fixed, we talk to the customer success manager and say, hey, we found all this. Guess what? Out of these 20 items, 10 of them can be fixed by internal work. Customer success manager, can you work on that? And then we, sales engineer and customer success manager, can have a conversation with the customer to walk them through how do they fix the other ones that they have to work with. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you, Estela. The next question is there a sales engineer certification?
Actually, there is. There is some sales engineering certification, and in the links that I sent, that I'm going to send in the deck, there's actually Coursera has some courses on sales engineering. So definitely they're out there.
Okay, the next question is, can sales engineers be used as an after-sales service support?
100%. So just keep this in mind. That's what we call the adoption. I remember when we were going over the deck, there's a portion of the phases where the sales engineer is asked to interact. Yes, during the adoption phase, that's what we call the adoption phase. Post sale of a product, sales engineers can be asked to come in and continue working with the customer until the customer is used to seeing what the product does. Or let's say, for example, let's take Splunk as an example, right? Somebody buys a Splunk and they go through the process of setting up their systems, but they went ahead and started feeding data into Splunk with the help of the sales engineer, right? Now they have to go do it on their own. Well, guess what? Now the person that did it no longer works with the company and somebody else inherited that job. The company has the ability to come back to us and say, you know what, I need a sales engineer that can come and help me to provide documentation to this customer and kind of walk him through some of these steps and answer those questions if they come to like a dead end. That's where we come in and help. So yeah, 100%, they can come in post-sale.
The next question is, what are some of the challenges you faced with clients when you started as a sales engineer?
So some of the challenges, it will depend, there's different types of challenges. You have your skill set challenge, and then you have what I call the human challenge. So let's talk about the skill one, right? As a new sales engineer, you have a lot of knowledge that is still kind of dormant and that you have to use that muscle memory and know exactly when to retrieve it. And so that was a challenge sometimes, especially when you have a customer that is a demanding customer that expects you to know it all. And that as a sales engineer, you have to be able to say, I don't know that, but let me go ahead and research it for you. Some individuals may not like that answer, but I tell you this, as a human, sometimes that in itself is a challenge. Knowing how to say, I don't know what that means, but let me go research it. And so if you are one of those people that says that a lot and the customer gets upset with you, it could be a little bit deflating, right? Like you can become a little bit, I don't want to say scared, but you kind of feel cornered, right? And so that's a challenge. But and then in your mind, you have this conflict of, do I know enough or do I not know enough? It's not that you don't know enough, it's that nobody can know it all. There's no way. So you need to, that was a challenge, right? With the customer, the technical part, you don't know it all. Well, if you don't know it all, it's okay to say, you know what, I don't know it. That's an interesting question. Let me take it back and I'll bring it back to you. Now, the other portion of it was the human portion of it. Remember, I was telling you that as a sales engineer, you have to know how to diffuse some of the difficult times. I have come into phone calls where customers are super happy about how the product works and they're excited. And that's not a problem. I mean, you have a great symbiotic relationship with the conversation. But I have had customers where we get in a phone call and we are engaged where the customer is already at a high temperature. My job is not to come in as a high temperature. My job is to come in and listen and make sure the customer unloads all that pressure they have and understand what's behind that pressure. Take it off completely and listen exactly to what they're saying. That sometimes could be challenging, but you can learn how to do it. So if you put this together, don't let them scare you. Just know if you're new to sales engineering, know when to say, I don't know that, but let me research it for you, and learn how to say, I understand that, I completely get it. Let me help you with it. So that could be challenging, but it's a muscle memory. You get there.
We have a couple of more questions.
Sure.
The next one is, how is information disconnect between the technical team, the team building the product, and the sales team avoided? How do you avoid information disconnect?
So that is actually a really good question. I like it. So here's what happens. Sometimes it feels like even though you're working in the same company, your technical team and your sales team sometimes doesn't seem to really understand each other. I think one of the good practices to avoid that disconnect is the good communication. And I'm not just talking about verbal communication, but after you have a phone call with somebody or a conversation with someone, even when you're on the phone with them or in Zoom, how we do it now, kind of get in the flow of restating what you heard, right? Because sometimes when we're in phone calls, we kind of hear and we make notes, but we don't take the time to say, wait a minute, did you say this? And if this is what I heard, is this what you meant? If you do that, sometimes you're going to find out that half of the time what you heard is not what they said. And if you do that, you're going to have people on the other side, whether it's in the technical side or the sales team side, that is going to say, oh my God, let me take that back. That's not what I meant. This is what we meant. So sometimes just taking that extra minute to say and restate, this is what I heard. Is that what you meant? And that doesn't make you look, because when I started doing that, sometimes I used to feel like, oh my God, am I making them feel like I'm not listening? But in reality, some of us, especially some of us that speak more than one language, can understand something differently because of the language aspect. So it's a good practice to do that. Number two, what you can do is after every interaction, send a quick follow-up Slack or email and say, per conversation, this is what we talked about. This is what we're going to do. And these are our next steps. Are we all in agreement? And if we're all in agreement, then we're good to move forward, right? Document things. Sometimes we work in a fly and we go so fast, we forget to document. Take those 2-3 extra minutes to document what the conversation was about, what it was about, what are the takeaways, who owns it, and what are the next steps. And if you continue doing that, people eventually are going to understand that's the way you work. It's like an infection. You're going to infect other people to work like that with you. And then you just kind of start like closing those gaps and bridges with communication. I hope that answers your question.
That's a great response. Thank you. And one last question is, how can someone build their portfolio as a sales engineer, someone who would be new to the job?
Yeah, so here's the thing. And I know when you are a developer, there's a portfolio per se, but as a sales engineer, I think it's more about how you perform. One of the things that I remember doing while I was going through the sales engineering hiring process was, are you able to explain something to somebody? Let's say, for example, a very complicated idea to a 6-year-old. Practice doing that. I'm telling you, it really helped me. Part of your portfolio is gonna be explaining difficult things to 6-year-olds. And it's not to say and compare and try to minimize anybody's intelligence. Is the rationale of, if you can explain something complicated to a 6-year-old, chances are that you understand it, and chances are that you can actually make someone else learn it and understand it. I didn't say that. Einstein said it, and I think he was great for saying that, but it works. And so learn how to do that. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's number one. That's part of your portfolio. If you want to be a sales engineer, part of your portfolio, be comfortable being 100% uncomfortable. We as sales engineers live 100% being uncomfortable, being comfortable, vice versa. Another thing you can do, again, some of the skills that we were talking about, if you hear about new technologies coming out, something that is really hot out there right now is Kubernetes. For those of you that want to be part of sales engineering, go out there and learn something about Kubernetes, how they're using it. Play with it, I don't know, anything like that, you can actually demonstrate, in 6 months, I went ahead and knew nothing about Kubernetes. And in 6 months, I learned this much. I call that learning in public. I am a strong believer in learning in public. When you tell someone else you're learning, you're actually making sure that you understand what you're learning. Because if you learn something and you save it for yourself, you might not really know it. You might just forget it in the back of your head. But if you teach it to someone else, you're actually going to really learn that. So as part of your portfolio, everything that you learn that is technical, again, whether you go into the technology field or maybe in the energy field, whatever it is that you learn, put it in there with your dates. If you do a little project, put it in there as well. And then when you present it to someone, you can go based off of that. When I'm a big believer of journaling. And so in the journaling process, you can actually put it in there, however you want to do it. But yeah, it's not an actual portfolio like we normally do with developers, where you can actually create a calculator or say I created this really neat app to do it. If you do that, perfectly fine. You can actually include it in there as well, because like I told you, some of our sales engineers are app developers. Some other ones are actual architects in AWS. I mean, it depends. So anything new that you add to it is part of your portfolio. I hope that answers your question.
Estela, that's great. Thank you so much. I think, it was really great presentation, and you had a lot of advice that I think is applicable to other areas too. Even though you're discussing sales engineering, it's applicable to all these other fields. So thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it. And I think the community is really going to benefit from this talk. And I'm happy now to know what a sales engineer is. I did not know that before. So
thank you. I was actually hoping that by the end of our talk, you knew what a sales engineer was. I'm telling you, when I heard it, I was like, what is that? It sounds so scary. I don't want to sell. No, we even though we're part of the sales team, we really are more on the part of like the scientific part of the sales. And that's the fun part, for some of us that at some point we started in computer science, but see, this was my train of thought. When I went to school, I was like, I'm going to code the rest of my life. But then I figured out that I love talking. I'm like, oh, wow, that's not going to work. I need human interaction. And so for me, sales engineer was good. I love the reading part and the research part, and like, let's get our hands dirty and break some systems in our test environment and put them together. Yeah, but then I also need to talk to people. I like talking to people. So it was great for me. I mean, there might be people out there right now in the audience that feel the same way. So yes, I'm very happy that my talk was able to answer that question. Who is a sales engineer? I hope some of you guys get encouraged to come over to this side. It'll be great to have some of you over here.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you. I hope everyone has a great day.